the Helping Hands this month for February is the Wish Foundation, the Wish Drop-In Center, sorry. And Kelly put in your handouts some wonderful information. But to give, if you haven't read it, this the Wish Drop-In Center is 30 years old. It's a dedicated group of volunteers who started a street ministry that was a place of warmth, understanding, and compassion for Vancouver's sex trade workers. Now, I've invited Kate Gibson, who's the executive director, right, to come and speak to us about this organization. And Kelly put in here something that really impressed me about this company, this drop-in center. It says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Please welcome Kate Gibson.
Thank you, Marion. Hello, everyone. I think you can probably hear me. I have a loud voice. So it's really nice to be here, to be invited here, and be part of your Helping Hands ministry in February. So Marion had asked if I would just tell you a little bit about Wish, which I can. She's quite right. It started 30 years ago, just over 30 years ago, by a fellow, David Dranchuk, who he was a youth outreach worker from the Archdiocese of New Westminster. And he was doing outreach to St. Michael's, in the area of St. Michael's, which is near Broadway and Main in Vancouver. And he had seen women, particularly, working out on the street in the sex trade, and thought, you know, they have no place warm to go, they have no washrooms, no coffee, no phone, no warmth, nothing. So he started this outreach to open up St. Michael's and have the women come in, which he did, and it went on, and that was in 1984, and so it was just him, as far as I know, and he would prepare coffee and welcome the women in. And it went on for a long time, for I guess another couple of years there, but what happened was in 1985, the Canadian government put prostitution under the Criminal Code of Canada, so criminalized people engaging in sex work, which meant then that the community, who didn't like having sex workers in their community, had some teeth to rid their community of sex workers. So what happened was, also you may recall that we had Expo in 1986, and people who were engaging in sex work and working out on the street soliciting weren't really to be tolerated. So they had to close the program at St. Michael's, at which point, Wish really didn't have anywhere to go, and but First United Church, that some of you may be familiar with, at Hastings and Gore, First United welcomed Wish to come there and share their facilities. So where Wish went to visit, who knows how temporarily, we stayed for almost 21 years. And they gave us a place, we had our own room, we had the Wish room, but then they just let us use the whole church. So we used their kitchen, we used their learning center, we used these other rooms that they had. They would let us do anything, and it was fantastic. And at that point, it was all volunteer run. So there were people who came there every day and prepared meals. Well, at that point, they didn't prepare meals, but they had some food and coffee and warmth and welcome. And most importantly, no judgment. So the women were who the women were. And really, that's what we continue with today. So anyway, as I say, we did that for 21 years. At some point, I think in the late 90s, they started serving meals. And everything, of course, was done on a shoestring. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Food Runners program of the Greater Vancouver Food Bank. So they would donate food, and there was a little tiny food budget, and so there was what there was. But when I first went to Wish as a volunteer in 2001, I think. I went there as a volunteer. It was, you know, sort of catch as catch can, but there were a lot of women came for dinner. There was, you know, 100 women came for dinner. And we served dinner in there was a side foyer in the church, not where the main entrance was. And we had just a hallway with 2 pews and some folding tables, and that's where we served dinner. And women would just come and go all night long. And when I first went there to volunteer, cooking in restaurants is my background, and I was invited by somebody to go and make a meal. And I just couldn't believe what a place it was. I loved it. I fell in love with it as soon as I went there. Those women are just remarkable. They're just like us, and it was fantastic. So the first time I went, we made this meal, and I thought, wow, this is pretty great. And then I said, well, when can I come back? And the staff said, well, you can come back anytime you want. So I came back, and I came back, and I came back, and I did that for a couple of years, and then the executive director went on medical leave for 3 months, and I just went to do her job while she was away, and then she only came back briefly, and so I stayed. And so that was 11 and a half years ago since I did that. So, but in all those years, you know, I see the women really, they don't change, and their needs don't change, and, you know, our work to support them in wherever place they are in their lives is the most important thing. So I don't know if some of you might be familiar that about 10 years ago, the members of Van City voted for us to have $1 million to have our own drop-in center. So First United was very happy when we finally moved out 6.5 years ago. The city gave us a building to use part of, and we moved into that building. So the women now have their own place where they come, and we continue to offer meals, and we have a clinic and a learning center and a program for Aboriginal women, and we have supported employment and a peer volunteer program. So there's lots goes on there every day of the week. And then since the Missing Women's Inquiry, which was December 2 years ago, they brought the report from the Missing Women's Inquiry, and one of the recommendations that they said should happen is a drop-in center should be open overnight for women. So we're the only drop-in center, so we're open overnight now. And so that's been the last 2 years almost, I think almost 2 years in March. And we are open from 6 at night. We start with dinner, and then we close at noon the next day, 7 days a week. And it's great because now what's happened is, because we used to close at 11 at night, but now we see a whole group of women that we never saw before, and never were, you know, their schedule wasn't our schedule, and now it's much, much better. So we serve dinner still to about 120 to 140 women a night, it depends when it is. And then we have, I can tell you, there's this litany of snacks from 9, you know, dinner till 9, snacks go till 1 in the morning, then there's soup till 5, then we have a little break, then we have breakfast from 7 to 9, and then we have more snacks. And it's crazy, but it's wonderful because it draws people in, it gives people community. Our staff do everything, and our volunteers, to make people have a sense of community. So it's a great place to be. And in addition to that, we have a van that's out on the road all night long as well. So they go out about 10:30 at night, and they're back at 6 in the morning, and they sort of take Wish and take it all over Vancouver. So there's women who work in all different places, not just the downtown east side. And we're able to reach out to them. We've got harm reduction supplies and coffee and clothing and usually a little food. And we have women who, in that program, many of them have been part of the sex trade at some point in their lives. And they're great support for the women on the street. So that's our other thing that we do besides having a fixed site. We also have a mobile site. So that's what we do. It's a wonderful, I love doing it. It's been really, you know, we all go through life. We don't really know what we'll bump into. And I'm internally grateful that I bumped into Wish. It's lovely. So thanks very much for having me here today.